Alright, this is episode 5, and we're going to talk about weapons. The episode after this is going to focus on configuration, but this little piece of configuration is so important that I really need to mention it here. You need to have the important weapons on something you can hit while you're in the middle of combat, fighting, and dodging. So, escape, options, input, and you can move these around here. I have WASD for movement, and rockets on E, ion cannon on F, bolt rifle on Q. So these are things where I'm in the middle of fighting, I can just move an extra finger off to the side, press it, no problem. That's something you definitely want to do, because you don't want to be fumbling with the mouse wheel. That never goes well, because you're not sure what weapons you have, what's out of ammo, and you don't want to be trying to stretch your fingers across to like 6, 7, 5, 6, 7. You know, those numbers are just not easy to hit. So, with that said, we'll start with the axe. If you're in free-for-all, 1 vs. 1, TDM, these modes, you only start out with the axe and the burst gun. The axe, whenever you click it, it's essentially a hit-scan weapon, and by hit-scan I mean something that immediately looks straight forward and determines did it hit, yes, no, and it's immediately as you click. So, you have to be close, you have to click it right whenever they're in your crosshair, and it does 100 damage. It is quite a lot of damage for a melee weapon. Notably, the knockback on that is absolutely fantastic. I don't know if there's any real application for that. Maybe you could coordinate something with teammates, have somebody on your head, and just axe them on a mode where you don't do team damage. But anyway, next weapon is the burst gun. So this is the other starting weapon. Fires 3 shots in a weird pattern like that. As you get further away from people, it spreads out further, so you're not really going to be using this at too much of a distance unless you're just kind of poking at somebody trying to keep them away if they're really low in health. But it is 10 damage per hit, 3 times that, and it fires twice a second. So if you're hitting every single shot, 60 DPS. It's not that good. Shotgun is the next one. This is also hit scan. It's in a set pattern. There's no randomness to it, and if every single bullet hits, it does 84 damage. It's actually quite effective. I'm kind of bad at it, but I never developed a taste for shotgun type weapons in these games, and I really should. I should spend more time practicing with it. It doesn't seem that hard, but for whatever reason I just have this mental block where I don't aim it properly. Next weapon is the grenade launcher. Tosses out a grenade. After 2 seconds, and you can see my little timer there that goes in a circle. After 2 seconds it explodes. So I believe there's a minimum amount of damage where if it's just barely close enough, I think it does 20 damage to your opponent, something close to that, we'll see. Yeah, 25, okay. So it'll do a max of 100 if it's right next to them, and it also explodes if it hits them on contact. So you're not going to spend too much time fighting with the grenade launcher. It's more like if you know your opponent's down there and you don't want him to come up, you're just going to spam down there. You know this is his other path, he'll take one of those too. So you just do that to deny him entrance to an area. And the hitbox on these is actually pretty big. It's physically a large model. So you can catch people off guard by spamming and having them bounce off of weird angles. Don't be afraid to use it for that, but also if you're in a close enough area, like this sort of place, and you're really close to your opponent, don't be afraid to just lob them around too. Max DPS on this is 125, and any explosive in the game, rockets and grenades included, do half damage to yourself, full damage to opponents. So if you're up close, he's going to take 100, you're going to take 50. It's not a bad deal if you really have to go for it. Next up, plasma gun. Plasma fires projectiles. They do 12 damage per hit, fires 10 times a second, so 120 DPS. It's pretty much up there. Problem is, it's kind of hard to aim whenever you're looking at somebody and they're dodging and you got a decent distance. So stationary target, sure, you're going to do 120 DPS, but if he's dodging, you're not going to have as good luck there. It also does have a very small blast radius around it, so you can use it to hurt yourself or even to boost yourself. So you can't jump up here, you can go like that. It's appreciable too, you can get up here without too much difficulty. So that's the ion cannon, or I'm sorry, the plasma gun. This is also used for spamming entrances, so if you know your opponent's around something like this, and I know the plasma gun's not on this map, but just say, you know, you're trying to dodge, or you're trying to prevent him from getting to that weapon and trying to attack you, you can just spam it, and that'll kind of deter him a little bit from attacking you. It has a lot of ammo for as much damage as it does. You get 100 whenever you pick it up. You also get 100 with the ion cannon, which I'll talk about in a little bit, but that does a lot less damage per hit, comparable to DPS. Anyway, next weapon is the wonderful rocket launcher. This is a staple of the Quake series, and Reflex itself is also big on it. The big thing about rockets is they explode on contact with anything, not just people. So it will do 100 damage if you shoot him in the face, it'll do 100 damage if you shoot him in the feet. If you shoot near him, the damage scales linearly based on how far away it is to him. So again, this will do, I think, 25 is the min. Yeah, just about. And if you shoot low enough, it'll bounce him up, make him an easy target for another rocket. You can do huge amounts of damage with this, and it's not just that it does good damage and it's 125 DPS if you're hitting every shot perfectly. Whenever your opponent's dodging the rockets, you can get him set so that he sees you aiming just to his side and he knows, okay, I can't go in that direction. So you can control what your opponent's going to dodge into or away from. If you know he's going for health, shoot between him and the health, and he'll have to decide, maybe I don't want that right now. So rocket launchers are huge. If somebody's coming up around here around the corner, you can just be spamming at the ground, prevent them from doing that. Another neat thing is that rocket and grenade explosions, although this mostly applies to rockets, they go through tiny parts of walls. So if you shoot at the top part of this ledge, and your opponent's up there, and you know, can I get him into a good place where he'll actually, where I can show that off? Probably not. Let's see what happens if I do this. One sec. Alright. So, I get him up there. If I shoot too low, does nothing. If I aim a little higher, it hits him. So, if it's a small enough section of wall, it will go through the wall and hit him. Technically, it's 8 units. So if you have something that looks about that thick, and somebody's standing on the other side of it, you can shoot a rocket, it'll hit them. Or if you have a floor that's about that thick, you shoot a rocket and they're standing on top of it, you shoot a rocket below them, it will hit and it'll do quite a bit of damage. There are some maps where that does come into play. You'll kind of have to learn the geometry and just recognize it. THCDM 13 has a handful of those, like the rail and the red armor. So that's a good thing to keep an eye out for. 1 second here. Alright, so after the rocket launcher, ion cannon. Ion cannon is hit scan. It has a max range that's something like that. So there's no fall off damage if you're in range. Up close it does just as much as it does if you're at just max range. 5 every hit, and it fires every 44 milliseconds, which adds up to about 114 DPS. So, compared to the plasma gun, plasma does just slightly more DPS, but it is harder to aim because you have to lead. With the ion cannon, if you have under 80 milliseconds, you just track, and it is a wonderful weapon. This is the sort of thing where, say my opponent's kind of down here, and he's got rocket launcher, he doesn't have a good option for a hit scan weapon. I can just sit up here and make sure that any rocket that he fires over here, I'm far enough away from, and that anything he fires right to my face, I just dodge away from. And I can just sit here, track, do slight little movements to dodge his rockets, completely destroy him. So the ion cannon is something where if your opponent can't hit you with rockets, abuse it, because he will take a lot of damage unless he can use another hit scan weapon to return it. Next up, bolt rifle. This is much like the Quake 3 railgun. Infinite range, instant hit scan. it goes through people, so if you're in a mode with more people, it can do more. It hits for 80 damage on a hit no matter what, and it fires once every 1.5 seconds. So this does more DPS than this. That is the biggest point of this video, other than weapon binds. So if you're this close to somebody, do not fight with the bolt rifle. You fire and miss, he's got 1.5 seconds to punish you for your miss. You want to give him something that he has to think about dodging so that he doesn't get easy shots on you. Even if it looks like you're doing less damage with this, he's doing less damage to you because he's worried about taking damage from you. So, do not use the bolt rifle if your opponent can return fire. Only use the bolt rifle if you can immediately dodge behind something, or if you're far enough away that he can't reasonably return fire to you. And last is the stake launcher. Stake launcher, this is a projectile weapon. It is affected by gravity, not too much. Travels very fast. It goes through people, does 80 damage, and sometimes it bugs out and double or triple hits people, like especially if he was walking away from me and I fired this, it might hit his box twice or 3 times. So that's a bug that is not intended, but it does happen. Not many maps actually have the stake launcher, but the cool part about the stake launcher is that, you know how you can double jump up to this mega health? You could also do this. You can make your own jumps out of this. If you're really tricky, you can do a triple jump. So, you can use that to do some unique things. It's, like I said, not many maps, and the developers, quite a few months ago, they were talking about merging the bolt rifle and the stake launcher. So I think it was discussed as a hit scan weapon that would leave a bolt behind on the location that it hit. That might happen still, I'm not sure. It'd be really cool if it did. I think that'd be a neat addition to the game. Anyway, that's it for the weapon overview. Next up will be configuration. Thanks for watching.